Now, I also wanted to spend some time while we're here talking about the shorthand that we're using with CSS and all the properties that we're dealing with. It seems like a lot at first, but it works the same pretty much for everyone. So let's go back to our document and we'll try some differences out with margin. First of all, I'm already using the shorthand property. So let's set this up so that I use the individual properties first. I'll start off by just setting a margin top. And we can set our value, again, let me try 10 pixels. We'll save our change, and we'll go back to our page and refresh. Now we can see two things right off the bat. First of all, I am indeed seeing a 10 pixel margin at the top, so that's set up properly. We also have a space at the bottom, and that's because I am no longer specifying a 0 for the bottom margin, and it's going back to the default, whatever my browser thinks a margin for a paragraph should be. So if you don't specify a margin, you're going to end up with a default. To get rid of that space at the bottom, I can of course use the margin bottom property. And let's set that to 0 so that we can make it close up. I'll save that change. We'll go back and test our page. And you can see that the gap's now closed at the bottom. And the only margin that we're seeing is up here at the top. Now, of course, there's a margin left and a margin right property, and we can explicitly set each one. And there's no problem in using this longhand CSS. But a lot of people like to take shortcuts. So let's take a closer look at the shorthand use of the margin property. Now, we've already seen the basic use. I'll get rid of the two top and bottom ones that we have here. And we'll convert this rule back to just a margin. And the way we've used this so far is we just specify one measurement. If I put in 10 pixels, that will be a margin of 10 pixels on all sides, top, bottom, left, and right. Save our changes. We'll go out and test our page. And I've gone back to a 10 pixel margin on all the three borders I can see. And of course, we know there's one over here on the right-hand side as well. Now, we can use the shorthand property to specify individual sides. If we have a single measurement, that measurement will be used on all four sides. But if we have two measurements, let me make one 20 pixels, and we'll add that right after the 10 pixel measurement. And that's where our 20 pixel gap goes. Now, so far, we've seen a margin property using 1 and 2 values. There's a third way, and with that one, you specify 4 values. And what you're doing is specifying one value for each one of the sides, top, right, bottom, and left. So I'm going to go ahead and set up 4 values here that we can easily distinguish. I'll set 30 pixels as my third value, and I'll set up 40 pixels as my fourth value. Let's save that change, and we'll go through and see how it gets added in. If we take a look, I've got a 10 pixel measurement on the top. I can't see it on the right-hand side, but we've got a 20 pixel measurement there, a 30 pixel measurement gap on the bottom, and a 40 pixel one on the left-hand side. Now it's up to you. You can use any of these styles that you want. You can use the individual tags, margin top, bottom, left, and right, or you can use the shorthand and use 1, 2, or 4 measurements for each one of your sides. This exact same shorthand works for padding as well. So let me try it for our padding down here at the bottom. So far, I've got a 5 pixel value, and that's giving me a 5 pixel gap here on every single side, just like we saw with margin. If I spread this out to 4 different sides, I'm just going to increment them each like we did with margin. I'll put a 15 pixel measurement after the first one, and then follow it with 25 pixels and 35 pixels. We'll save our changes, and we can go back and take a look at the padding now. Now we can even see the one on the right-hand side. Our smallest gap is up here at the top with 5 pixels of padding. Then we go to 15, 25, and 35. Now, Borders shorthand works a little bit different. The first difference is we actually have 3 different border properties that we need to control. So let's go back and set that up first. I'll add this into my paragraph setting, and we'll start off with the border color. I'll just set that to blue again, and then I'll follow that with the border width. We'll set that at something like 5 pixels so we can easily see it. And then we'll follow that up with the border style. Here we can specify what kind of line we want to see. And so far we've been using solid. I'll save those changes, and we'll go back out and refresh the page. You can see that the border settings gave me properties on each one of the sides, and they're all equal. Now, when we look at shorthand for the border property, we can write all three of these in one line. We simply use the border property by itself, and we specify the width, 5 pixels, the line type, solid, and the color, blue, and we need to specify those in order, and we can get rid of the other two styles. So like the other shorthands, you can use either one you like. I'll refresh the page and you can see it's exactly the same. Now if we want to separate out the elements and draw individual border lines for each one of the sides, we'll actually need to use individual tags, and we don't have any shorthand for that. Let's say I want a blue border on the top only. I'll go back in and modify this rule, and first of all, I'll use the border-top-color to specify the color, which we want as blue. Then I'll use another property, border-top-width, and we'll specify a 5 pixel line again. And finally, I'll use border-top-style. And this time, let me specify it as dashed. And we'll save that change. We'll refresh the page. And now we can see a single border at the top, which is blue 5 pixel and dashed. Now, as I mentioned before, if we use shorthand with the border property by itself, we'll be setting all three properties at once. But we do have some shorthand for individual properties. For instance, I could do border-color. I'll take the top out of each one of these designations. And we'll specify two different colors. Let me set blue and red. We'll set border width to 5 pixels and 2 pixels. And we'll set the style to dashed and solid. Now, just as you would expect, if I supply two values, it will use the first value for the top and bottom, and the second value for left and right. And of course, if we specified 4 different values, we could set the color for each individual side. Let's save our change and just try this out to make sure it works right. Now we can see blue dashed lines that are thick on the top and bottom, and thinner red lines that are solid on the left and right. And now that we've seen a little bit about how the blocks themselves work, the next thing we want to talk about is positioning.